Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the hidden machinery of your mind to see how shifting just one single perspective can completely transform how you experience the world. We're pulling a powerful framework directly from our source material, 12 Steps to a Good Life, which really breaks down this profound journey of uncovering who we authentically are.
So let's start by looking at that visceral, gut-wrenching reaction we all have to a setback. You know the exact feeling I'm talking about, right? The second something goes wrong, our trickster brains treat it as a crushing personal defeat. We instantly jump to, what is wrong with me? We take a normal, everyday hiccup and blow it up into this massive, catastrophic disaster. But why? Why on earth does our brain do this to us, and why does it hurt so much? Well, the source text points out something absolutely crucial. We have to validate that pain. It doesn't just materialize out of nowhere. It happens because there's a mismatch between reality and our perception of it. Think about it like this. You experience discomfort when you truly believe a glass door is open, but the objective truth is something else entirely. When you walk face first into that closed glass door, man, your nose hurts. Whenever we cling to expectations that just don't match reality, our emotions take a serious hit.
Which brings us to the very first stage of this transformation, Section 1, the reality crash. Basically, change hits us in three distinct ways. First, you crash into reality. This is usually due to your own actions or maybe inactions, like clinging to unrealistic expectations or, genuinely believing you can fly. Second, reality crashes into you. These are the completely uncontrollable events. An illness, a sudden economic downturn, the stuff that is entirely out of your hands. But then there's the third scenario. You participate in reality. Instead of these catastrophic collisions, it's like you're an eagle gliding on invisible currents. You aren't trying to force reality to change, you're actually partnering with it to proactively grow.
To really understand why failing hurts so deeply, we need to look under the hood. Section 2, the mechanism, the cognitive triangle. This right here is foundational. The cognitive triangle demonstrates that it is actually not the event itself that hurts you. It is your belief about the event. Your thoughts influence your feelings, and those feelings, in turn, heavily influence your actions. And it's a loop, right? Because your behavior feeds right back into your thoughts. So if you have a negative thought, it immediately triggers negative emotions, and that just paralyzes your actions. But here's the catch. Our thoughts can entirely betray us. The source material outlines these things called cognitive distortions. They're essentially irrational patterns that hijack that cognitive triangle we just talked about. Take catastrophizing, for example. You make one tiny mistake at work and instantly your brain goes, well, I'm definitely getting fired today. Or all or nothing thinking, where if a project isn't absolutely flawless, you deem the whole thing a total failure. Or labeling. You stumble once and suddenly you permanently brand yourself with a single negative word, like loser. These distortions are exactly what trigger those massive waves of negative emotion. Luckily, you can interrupt this endless, looping cycle of misery. How? By simply pausing and asking yourself one vital question. Is this thought useful? Seriously, if your thinking is repetitive, super negative, and entirely unproductive, the answer is just no. And just recognizing that simple fact is enough to break the loop.
Now we reach the absolute core of today's explainer. Section 3, failure versus feedback. This cognitive pivot is a total game changer. It shifts your mindset entirely away from treating setbacks as crushing personal defeats that trigger thoughts like, what is wrong with me? Instead, you completely reframe the setback purely as objective feedback. You are deliberately pivoting your brain to ask what you can learn from the obstacle and exactly how you can use that lesson to adapt. You strip away the emotional sting, and you just look purely at the data.
Think about Thomas Edison for a second. He literally didn't view thousands of unsuccessful attempts as personal indictments of his character. No way. He viewed them as pure, objective data points, famously stating, I've not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Every single setback was just valuable feedback for his very next attempt. And the best part is, you can apply this exact same cognitive pivot to the roadblocks in your own life. Instead of an obstacle perspective where you look at a barrier as this immovable thing that stops you in your tracks and you ask, why is this so difficult? You shift to a challenge perspective. You ask, how can I navigate this opportunity? Challenges don't stop you. They actually inspire greater effort and creative problem solving.
So how do we actively fight back when our brain tries to drag us back into the mud? Section 4, dispute your distortions.
we can actually use the ABC model to intercept these negative beliefs in real time. Let's walk through it together. A is the activating event. Say a friend sends you a super short one-word text message. B is your belief. Your distorted brain immediately jumps to, oh no, they are definitely mad at me. C is the consequence. You feel super hurt and anxious. But here is where you take back control. D stands for dispute. You put that automatic belief on trial. You demand factual evidence. Do I actually know for sure they're mad? Maybe they're literally just busy driving. And finally, E is the effect. That is the wave of calm that washes over you when you adopt a new, rational outlook based on facts. Another absolutely fantastic tool is called inversion. To invert a thought, you just restate it from the exact opposite perspective, usually by reversing the ownership. So if your brain is screaming, "You are holding me back," you just flip it to, "I am holding myself back." Now, this isn't about shaming yourself, okay? It's about detaching from the emotional blame game and taking immediate, empowering ownership of the narrative. You are taking your power back from those automatic thoughts.
Let's look at how to internalize this pivot on a daily basis. Section 5, the radar method. The radar method gives you 3 explicit, totally actionable steps to take the very next time you experience a setback, a frustration, or just that sudden creeping urge to catastrophize. It stands for reflect, describe, respond. Think of this as your new daily toolkit. First step, reflect. You just pause. You notice your physical state and your emotions without judging them at all. Just observe what's happening. Second, describe. You translate those raw reflections into clear, perfectly neutral language. You don't say, "I'm a massive failure." You say, "I feel frustrated because I made a mistake." See the difference? You're just labeling the facts. Finally, respond. You take deliberate, thoughtful action that aligns perfectly with your core values. By reflecting, describing, and responding, you break your inertia. You are finally moving forward based on objective feedback, not blinding fear. I want to leave you with this final, highly provocative thought directly from the source text. What are the best things about the worst things that ever happened to you? Really think about that for a second. Because if you can answer that question, you have successfully reframed your own past failures into your greatest sources of feedback. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.